The Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud. Picture this for a moment. You wake up with your heart racing, the last pieces of a dream slipping away like water through your fingers. In the dream, you were being arrested. A police officer stood at your door, telling you to come along. The charge? Infanticide. The murder of a child. You know, with absolute certainty that you've done nothing like this. It's a crime you could never commit, and yet that feeling of dread stays with you. It felt so real, so disturbingly specific. You might shake your head, laugh it off, and think, well, that was bizarre. That's what most of us would do. For thousands of years, we've treated dreams as either divine messages or meaningless brain static during sleep, prophecies or nonsense, nothing in between. But what if they're neither? What if that strange, unsettling dream wasn't random at all? What if it was actually a coded message from the deepest, most hidden part of yourself? A message that, if you could decode it, would reveal a secret wish you didn't even know you had? At the turn of the 20th century, in the grand, coffee-house-filled city of Vienna, a doctor named Sigmund Freud was about to propose exactly this idea. He was a man trained in hard science, a neurologist who'd studied fish nervous systems and the properties of cocaine. But his work with patients suffering from hysteria, a mysterious condition of the mind, led him down a rabbit hole into the human psyche. In 1899, after an intense period of personal and professional struggle, including grieving his own father's death, Freud published a book that would change the world. It was so revolutionary that his publisher post-dated it to 1900, as if marking the beginning of a new century of thought. That book was The Interpretation of Dreams. It didn't sell well at first. It took 8 years to sell just 600 copies, but its ideas slowly seeped into our culture, changing everything. It gave us a new language for talking about ourselves. Words like ego, repression, and the famous Freudian slip all have their roots in this period of his work. Freud believed this was his greatest discovery. He saw the book as a key, one that could unlock the hidden architecture of the human mind. And that's what I want to offer you today. By the end of our time together, you'll hold a version of that key in your hands. You'll see that your dreams, no matter how strange or chaotic, aren't random noise. They're the secret language of your deepest self. They are, in Freud's famous words, the royal road to the unconscious. And once you learn to walk that road, you begin to understand who you truly are. So where do we even begin to understand our dreams? For centuries, people looked at dreams and saw only chaos, a jumble of images, a dog reciting poetry, a rock floating on water, a dead person walking to their own grave. It all seemed utterly nonsensical, like a television randomly flipping through channels at night. The scientific view was that dreams were just the brain misfiring, a kind of mental garbage disposal clearing out the day's useless impressions. But Freud had a different idea, a radical one. He said every single dream, no matter how bizarre, has meaning. And what is that meaning? In its simplest form, every dream is a wish fulfillment. Think about it in the most basic way. If you go to bed thirsty, you might dream of gulping down a glass of cool, refreshing water. If a child is told they can't have any more cherries, they might dream that night of eating a whole basketful. These are what Freud called dreams of convenience. Your mind creates a little movie to satisfy a simple need or desire. In a way, the dream is trying to protect your sleep. Instead of waking you up to get a drink, it gives you a dream of drinking. The dream, Freud said, is the guardian of sleep, not its disturber. This seems simple enough for straightforward dreams. But here's where the mystery deepens. If every dream is a wish fulfilled, what are we to make of nightmares? What wish is fulfilled when we dream we're being chased, or that a loved one has died? And what about those completely absurd dreams, the ones that seem to have no logic at all? This is the great puzzle Freud set out to solve. And his solution is one of the most brilliant ideas in modern thought. He realized that a dream has 2 layers. There's the dream you remember, the strange story, the weird images. He called this the manifest content, But beneath that, hidden away, is the true meaning, the raw, uncensored thought. He called this the latent content. The dream you remember is like a coded message. The real meaning, the latent content, has been disguised. And the process that does this disguising, Freud called it the dream work. To understand this, let's look at one of Freud's own dreams, the one that became his key specimen, the dream that unlocked everything for him. He called it the dream of Irma's injection. Here's the backstory. Freud was treating a patient named Irma, who was also a family friend. The treatment wasn't a complete success, and Freud was feeling a bit defensive about it. One day, a colleague named Otto visited and casually remarked that Irma was better, but not entirely recovered. This small comment annoyed Freud. He felt criticized, as if Otto and Irma's family were blaming him for the failure. That night, he had a dream. In the dream, he's at a party and sees Irma. He pulls her aside and tells her, "If you still have pains, it's your own fault." But she complains of terrible pains in her throat and stomach. Worried he'd missed something physical, Freud looks into her throat. He sees strange white patches and scabs. He quickly calls over other doctor friends who are at the party. One of them, Dr. M, confirms it's an infection but says it's no big deal. And then, the dream reveals the cause. His colleague Otto, the very same one who'd criticized him, had recently given Irma an injection with a dirty syringe. When Freud woke up, he analyzed this dream piece by piece. What did it all mean? On the surface, it looks like a dream about being worried for his patient, but as he dug deeper, he realized something else was going on. The dream conveniently created a story where the failure of Irma's treatment wasn't his fault at all. In fact, it was Otto's fault. The dream was a wish fulfillment. The wish wasn't for his patient to be sick. The wish was for him to be blameless. The dream took his feeling of annoyance from the day before and transformed it into a narrative that cleared his name and subtly took revenge on his critics. The dream was saying, "You're not to blame, Sigmund. Otto is." This was a profound revelation. The dream wasn't just random images. It was a highly structured psychological drama designed to fulfill a deep-seated, self-serving wish. But this brings us back to our central question. If the wish was simply, "I want to be blameless," why didn't the dream just say that? Why the elaborate story about dirty syringes, white patches, and all those other strange details? This is where Freud introduces the most important character in the drama of our dreams, the censor. Freud imagined our minds having two agencies or systems. One is the deep, primitive part of us, the unconscious, where our raw, powerful, and often unacceptable wishes live. The other is the more rational, conscious part of our mind, which has to function in civilized society. Between these two stands a guard, a censor. During the day, this censor is strong. It represses our darker, more selfish or forbidden wishes, keeping them locked away from our conscious awareness. But at night, when we sleep, the censor relaxes its guard, just a little. This allows those powerful, unconscious wishes to stir. But they still can't just march straight into our consciousness. To get past the sleepy guard, they have to disguise themselves. This process of disguise is the dream work, and it has a few key strategies it uses over and over again. The first is condensation. This is where the dream takes multiple ideas, memories, or wishes, and packs them all into a single image or word. It's like a compressed file of the mind. Freud had a dream where he coined the bizarre word autodidasker. When he analyzed it, he found it was a mashup of three different ideas: autor, meaning author; autodidact, a self-taught person; and the name of a politician, Lasker. All three were connected to a web of anxieties he was having about his own intellectual work, his family, and his legacy. Instead of spelling out all those worries, the dream just created one nonsensical word that stood for all of them. Think of the figure of Irma in his first dream. She wasn't just Irma. Her posture reminded him of another woman he admired, Her symptoms reminded him of his own daughter's illness. She was a, quote, collective image, a single character playing multiple roles at once. This is condensation at work. The second, and perhaps most crucial tool of the dream work, is displacement. This is where the dream shifts emotional energy from something truly important to something that seems trivial and insignificant. It's a form of mental misdirection. The censor won't allow the real high-stakes wish to appear in the spotlight, so the dream work shines the light on some unimportant detail in the corner of the stage. Freud had another dream where the central image was a botanical monograph, a scientific book about a plant. On the surface, this seemed to come from a minor event the day before. He'd seen a book about cyclamens in a shop window. Trivial, right? But when he analyzed the dream, he found that the word botanical was a trigger for a whole network of highly emotional thoughts. It connected to a patient named Flora, to his wife's favorite flowers, to a colleague named Gartner, which means gardener in German, and to a childhood memory of his father giving him a book with colored plates of flowers to tear up. All of these thoughts were linked to a very significant conversation he'd had with a friend about his career, his hobbies, and his deepest professional anxieties. The truly important event, the emotional conversation, was barely visible in the dream. Instead, the dream centered on the boring, neutral image of a botanical monograph. The emotional charge had been displaced from the important topic to the trivial one. This is how the dream smuggles forbidden content past the censor. It puts on a boring disguise. So when you dream about something seemingly random, like losing your keys, or a conversation about the weather, Freud would say that's probably not what the dream is really about. That's just the disguise. The real meaning, the high-energy wish, has been displaced onto that neutral image. This brings us to a fascinating aspect of dreams, their relationship with our childhood. Freud discovered that the wishes that power our dreams are almost always rooted in infancy. The desires left over from the previous day are like the entrepreneur with an idea, but they have no capital. They need to find a capitalist to fund the project, and that capitalist is always a powerful, often repressed wish from our earliest years. This explains why dreams so often feel both recent and ancient at the same time. They use material from the previous day, a conversation, something you saw, as a point of attachment for a much older, deeper wish to connect to. Let's look at another one of Freud's own dreams. He dreamt his friend R was his uncle, and he felt great affection for him. But the analysis revealed a much darker thought. At the time, Freud was hoping for a promotion to professor, but two of his Jewish colleagues, also up for promotion, had been passed over. This made Freud anxious that his own chances were slim. The dream came to his rescue. In the dream thoughts, he equated his friend R with his uncle Joseph, a man who'd been a criminal. This was his dream's secret way of saying, R is a fool, a criminal. The reason he didn't get promoted has nothing to do with me. My hopes are still alive. It was a ruthless, self-serving wish for his own success at the expense of his friends. But here's the genius of the dream work. The dream couldn't just present this ugly thought openly, so what did it do? It created a feeling of great affection for his friend R in the dream. This feeling was a disguise, a form of distortion. It was the complete opposite of the latent thought, designed to throw the censor, and Freud himself, off the scent. This is the key to understanding all those confusing and contradictory dreams. The dream isn't just a wish, it's a disguised wish. And this is especially true for dreams that cause us pain, for nightmares. A young woman told Freud she'd had a dream that her beloved nephew was dead. He was lying in a little coffin, surrounded by candles, just like another nephew who died years before. How could this possibly be wish fulfillment? Was she a monster for wishing her sister's only remaining child would die? Freud didn't think so. He asked her about the day before the dream. She told him she was planning to go to a concert that evening, because a man she'd loved for years, a man she could no longer see, was going to be there. Freud then asked her what happened after the first nephew died. She replied, "The professor came back after being away for a long time, and I saw him again, standing beside the coffin." And there was the answer. The dream wasn't about wishing the boy dead. The dream was using that sad scene as a stage to fulfill a different wish, the wish to see the man she loved again. The dream was expressing impatience. It was saying, "If only today were like that day, I would get to see him." The painful feeling associated with the scene, a funeral, was the perfect disguise for a wish she felt guilty about. The dream used a painful memory to hide a forbidden desire. This is a profound insight into how our minds work. The emotions in a dream are often real, but they get detached from their original source and stuck onto a different image. That's why you can dream of a terrifying monster and feel nothing, or dream of a harmless object and feel overwhelming dread. The dream work has cut and pasted the feelings and the images separately. This brings us to the most universal and perhaps unsettling of all typical dreams, the dream of a parent's death. A man dreams his father is dead. A woman dreams her mother is dead. The dream is often accompanied by intense grief. What could this possibly mean? Freud's answer is as courageous as it is controversial. He says the wish is real, but it's not a wish from today. It's a wish from your earliest childhood. He argued that a child's first stirrings of love and rivalry are directed at their parents. A little boy, he suggested, sees his father as a rival for his mother's exclusive affection. A little girl sees her mother as a rival for her father's love. To a child, death doesn't mean what it means to an adult. It simply means to be gone. The child who wishes for a rival sibling or parent to be dead is simply wishing for them to be out of the way so they can have their beloved parent all to themselves. This, Freud said, is a universal human experience. He found its echoes in one of the most powerful stories of Western civilization, the myth of Oedipus, the king who was fated to kill his father and marry his mother. Why does this ancient, horrifying story still move us so deeply? Because, Freud argued, it is our own story. The Oedipus myth is the fulfillment of a universal childhood wish, a wish that we've all since repressed and locked away deep in our unconscious. The horror we feel at the story is the horror of recognizing a forbidden part of ourselves. When we dream of a parent's death, we're not wishing for it to happen now. We're simply tapping into that ancient, repressed, infantile wish from the depths of our own personal history. The grief we feel in the dream is real, but it's often layered on top of that forbidden wish, a reaction from our more mature self to the darkness bubbling up from the unconscious. So we have the dream work, with its powerful tools of condensation and displacement, all in the service of disguising a wish to get it past the censor. But Freud noticed a fourth and final factor at play. He called it secondary revision. This is the part of our mind that tries to make sense of things, even in our sleep. After the dream work has created its chaotic, illogical collage of images, this last process kicks in and tries to tidy it up. It smooths over the absurdities, fills in the gaps, and tries to arrange the dream into something that resembles a coherent story. Think of it as an editor who comes in at the very end. The original script, the dream thoughts, was written by a passionate but repressed poet. The director, the dream work, then cut it up, mashed it together, and turned it into a bizarre, surrealist film. And now the editor, secondary revision, tries to cut and paste the film into something that looks like a normal narrative. This is why some dreams feel so logical and story-like, while others remain a confusing mess. It just depends on how successful that final editor was. But Freud warns us not to be fooled by this apparent coherence. The story of the dream is often the most misleading part. It's the final layer of disguise, a rational-looking mask placed over a deeply irrational process. The interpretation must always ignore the superficial story and break the dream back down into its raw elements. What Freud gives us in the end is not a dream dictionary. There's no simple key where a snake always means one thing and flying always means another. The meaning of a dream is deeply personal. It's woven from your own memories, your own language, your own worries from the day before, and most importantly, from the unique, indestructible wishes of your own childhood. The dream is a rebus, a picture puzzle, and if you try to read it like a painting, you'll see only nonsense. But if you learn to treat each image as a symbol, as a clue to a hidden thought, then the most beautiful and meaningful messages can emerge. So what do we take away from this incredible journey into the world of dreams? It's been over a century since Freud published this book, and the world of psychology has changed immensely. And yet, the core ideas in the interpretation of dreams remain profoundly powerful, not just for understanding our nights, but for understanding our entire lives. The first and most transformative lesson is the simple, radical idea that nothing in our mind is truly random. That slip of the tongue you made in a meeting, that song that's been stuck in your head all day, that bizarre dream you had last night, Freud suggests that all of these are meaningful. They're clues, breadcrumbs leading back to the hidden continent of your unconscious mind. This idea changes how you see yourself. It invites you to become a detective in your own life, to listen more closely to the whispers of your inner world. The second powerful idea is that our past is never truly past, especially our childhood. Freud shows us that the child we once were lives on within us, with all their powerful wishes, their fears, and their unique way of seeing the world. Those early experiences form a kind of template, a blueprint that shapes our adult relationships, our ambitions, and our anxieties in ways we rarely understand. Your dreams, he says, are one of the primary ways that this inner child speaks to you. It's a humbling and deeply moving thought that to understand who we are today, we must be willing to reconnect with who we were back then. And finally, there's the beautiful, almost poetic idea of the dream itself. Freud demystified the dream, taking it away from the gods and the mystics. But he didn't strip it of its magic. Instead, he revealed a different kind of magic, the magic of the human mind itself. He showed us that every night, each of us becomes a poet, an artist, a masterful storyteller. Our minds take the raw material of our lives, our worries, our desires, our memories, and weave them into these incredible, symbolic dramas. The dream work, with its condensation and displacement, is a form of creativity that's happening inside you every single night. So how can you start to apply these ideas in your own life? You don't need to become a psychoanalyst. You can start with something very simple. Tonight, just decide that you want to remember your dream. Put a notebook by your bed. When you wake up, before you check your phone, before you even get up, just lie there for a moment and see what comes back to you. Write down anything you can remember. Images, feelings, a single word. Don't judge it. Don't try to find the meaning right away. Then just ask yourself two simple questions. What was on my mind yesterday, and what did I feel in the dream? You're not looking for a perfect answer. You're just starting a conversation. You're learning to listen to the messages that your deeper self is sending you. Because what Freud ultimately taught us is that the journey to understanding our dreams is the journey to understanding ourselves. It's a path into the deepest, most authentic parts of who we are. And that's an adventure worth taking. That was a deep dive into the core ideas of the interpretation of dreams by Sigmund Freud. We've journeyed through the main concepts today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary, even a detailed one, is like looking at a map of a great city. The real adventure begins when you decide to walk its streets yourself. The true power of this book is in the intricate detail of Freud's own self-analysis, the way he fearlessly unpacks his own dreams, his own ambitions, and his own flaws. This summary is designed to give you that map, to help you see if this is a city you want to explore. If anything we've discussed today has sparked your curiosity, if you've ever woken up from a dream and wondered, what was that all about? Then I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning a theory. It's about embarking on one of the greatest adventures of all, the exploration of your own mind. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, it would mean the world to us if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Thank you for joining us, and let's keep growing together.